Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. This is Life List, a birding podcast with Molly Brown and Alvaro Jaramillo. I am George Armistead. We're here to talk birds in 2025. What's happening, guys?
Hello.
Hey, a lot of birds.
Yeah, a lot of birds. Did you guys notice, since our last recording, speaking of birds, that the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl? Al, if you had put that money down as we discussed, you would be a wealthy man.
How do you know I did not put the money down?
I was going to say.
I know you too well. Good sir. Mm-hmm.
Well,
not the right kind of prediction.
Yeah,
it's true. Well, you might remember that the other prediction that, the prediction that I made was that the Eagles would win by 2 scores. Of course, they won by many more than that. And it ended up just being a blowout, which was all kinds of fun. I watched the game with my parents, my sister, my 2 nephews, and Kristen, and we went out on the streets, Broad Street. It was chaos. Thousands of people swarming around City Hall, fireworks going off. The poles were greased, but it didn't matter. People were climbing up on top of them. There were fire trucks pulled out into the street. People were climbing all over the fire trucks. And it was, I didn't see any bad behavior. I was a little nervous about that. But there probably was some. It's Philadelphia after all. But mostly it was a pretty good vibe, man. It's people just having a good time. So yeah, I felt like I had to get it in there. We talked about it last time. And, I just got back from Portugal a few days ago. The first thing we do is we go from the airport to our hotel to check in. And like from down the hall, I hear someone go, "Go Birds!" Kristen's wearing her Eagles shirt, Here we are in Lisbon, Portugal, all the way across the Atlantic. We ended up walking around that day all over Lisbon, checking out the castles and different, just checking out the city, eating a lot of good food and enjoying some good wines. And we're wearing just Eagles tees. We got 5 different Go Birds calls from the faithful there in Lisbon.
So in Portuguese or in English?
No, in English. But in fact, the first couple we met were from Philly, and it was pretty funny. They're like not far from where we live. And so that was like literally the first 2 people we met in Portugal. It's like, oh, wow, how about that? Anyway, still festive here in Philly. A couple weeks later, people are still proudly wearing their colors. It's been a fun ride.
Now, you guys know that I'm not really a sports guy, but I dabble, Molly, you've heard my comments, here and there.
Who's winning?
I kind of, I try to sort of, be cool, but I just, I'm not a naturally like drawn to sports. But I will have you guys know there was a hockey game.
Oh, yes.
Quite recently between the U.S. and Canada. And it was exciting. That was crazy.
That's a big deal, man. I never even heard of that event like upcoming. And all of a sudden, it was big.
Yeah, it never existed before.
4 nations.
They put together an event that replaced the All-Star game, essentially, and the players took it really seriously. And everybody took it really seriously, even though it was what they called an exhibition event. And it became, apparently, on ESPN, the most watched sporting event that was non-football.
Wow.
The final game, So it was a big deal. I mean, political, the whole thing, It
was weird to kind of find myself pulling for Canada. Yeah, perhaps the less said about that, the better. But
no, but it was interesting to like watch the reactions and all of the kind of togetherness that it brought a lot of people, even Americans, that felt like it was a deserved kind of win, and also an exciting game. I think everybody really liked the game.
It sounded like a great
let
game. Yeah, I
alone-
didn't get to watch it.
Mhm.
But,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, when they win in overtime, it means that, the first goal in overtime wins it. So it was basically boom,
Connor
it was,
McDavid, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Who most people think is sort of the best actively playing hockey player in the world. So it's kind of nice to sort of have that happen. But yeah, there we go.
That's our sports fix for 2025. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
2025.
And then there is a meme going around, ornithological meme of a Canada goose stepping on a bald eagle. And
Heavens.
yeah, and not a Philadelphia eagle, a bald eagle, which is different.
Yeah, well, that's it's impossible to step on a Philadelphia eagle. It's not possible.
But yeah, there you go.
That's pretty funny. I actually appreciate this recap because I've pretty much been out of the country for the past month. And it's one of those things where I hadn't really been keeping up on these types of happenings. And it's like something happened. Some people are paying attention to hockey that weren't before. I don't really know. I don't get these memes. So you're filling me in a little bit. But yeah. I really do love sports. I grew up in a big sports family and the local sports kind of way too, and we have no professional sports teams in West Virginia that are top league or whatever, so a lot of folks gravitate toward Pittsburgh, but I don't know, it's just not as big here, and as much as I enjoy watching and playing sports, I don't do it as much these days. I don't have cable, I don't do any of that. But it's so cool when you hear a bunch of people really getting into something or having something to celebrate like that, like a whole city celebrating. I have honestly never really experienced that, and that is so awesome. It's got to be just
that's
you'll
the part,
remember that forever, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, and this sounds maybe over the top, but like when I look back, there's certain things when I look back on old Philadelphia sports moments, if I hear the calls from the announcers from my childhood, I get emotional. I'm like you hear this stuff and you're like, and it just speaks to me. It speaks to a time like I remember listening to the Phillies games on our long drives with my parents and my sisters, and some of these moments you remember exactly where you were, and it's just incredibly nostalgic.
Oh yeah.
So being present for moments like this, this game was kind of the first time I didn't want to watch with my, typically I'd be out with my buds at a bar and we would be having a grand old time. I was like, this time I want to watch with my mom and my nephew Dave, who's 13 now and can appreciate. I was like, that's who I want to be with for this game. Because I think that'll mean we'll have a good other group with us, but that's what I want. And we got it, and it was spectacular. It really was. It was a lot of fun, and we'll remember
That's awesome.
Yeah, we don't have the same thing in birding, right? Like everybody says birding's a sport and whatever, but we don't have I could just remember the day that the Records Committee publication came out, back in 1999, and they accepted the first it just brings a tear to my eye. We don't really have that, but although birding is super emotional, right?
Yeah.
Like it's super crazy in how it can change your life, and it can give you happiness just by being out there. And yet we don't have these events that maybe bring us together all at once, where we're all sitting there as birders watching what happens. Even things like a big year or whatever, it doesn't, people kind of read about it after the fact. No, but maybe somebody follows these things, maybe, I don't know. But what strikes you that could be even similar in the birding world? Anything?
Yeah.
I was thinking about this just before you were saying it too, about what on earth compares to it in birding. That great Black Hawk that was in Maine, our group started talking about it at one point in Columbia, and that was it's drawn out, but that was a point where I remember a lot of people, on social media and from afar, following the journey of this that ended tragically,
Yeah.
as likely would, but then kind of like had a conclusion because the bird was found. It was taxidermied. It exists. Like, that's as close as
Yeah.
I'm thinking in this moment.
Yeah, it's sort of a touchstone moment that many people from across the country can share. I think there are those twitches. More recently, I feel like that Kansas Ross's gull was kind of had a little bit of that, not maybe to the same extent, but there was a lot of people chasing that. It ended. It was sad, but there was also a heroic retrieval of the specimen. For me, I think the closest thing is you have those moments where you're with a group of people and you see something remarkable, and it might be rare or it might just be like mind-blowingly awesome, not even rare, just
Mm-hmm.
like holy Lord, I can't believe we just got to see that, like Molly from our lifeless trip. Like I still remember seeing that tapaculo fly over our head, like
Yeah.
literally you don't, it's not often you have a Tapaculo fly over your entire group's head. And we were just like,
Yeah.
what? And that was pretty mind blowing, but it feels like I feel like that's one of the things I love about tours. Is I feel like almost every tour has a singular moment that everyone's like, remember that, like,
Mm-hmm.
and I think you're right, Molly, that there's some of these really big vagrant chases have a similar element to that. There's like a collective memory, who found the bird. Maybe it disappeared. It was relocated someplace else. Everybody went and saw it. People are flying in, and maybe a tragic end or maybe whatever. But there are those touchstone moments. But you're right, Al. It's not a really, I wouldn't say necessarily of the sporting variety.
Yeah.
Like there used to be kind of
Yeah.
a little bit of that with like the World Series of birding,
Yeah.
but even then, I don't, maybe when the eBird team got that crazy total one time, that was pretty big news, and they
You mean
sent
in Tadoussac, is that what you talked about? Crazy Toad. Oh no! Oh, you're talking. Oh, the Eber team on the big.
Texas
Okay,
Big
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Day. Yeah, I
The
forget what
big
year
day.
that was. I think it was before
I was
2010.
I was thinking of that checklist of the bazillions of birds,
Oh yeah,
migrating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that
that
was epic. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a friend, Carl Conzi, who's in in Toronto, who used to be one of my teenage birding friends. He's a biologist now, and he's going through and putting in eBird, rarities from the 80s when we were kids. And it's really wild because he will say, like, do you remember, you know, in this case, it was, I think, some pretty memorable birds like the, swallowtail kite and buckhorn Ontario or what have you, or, and it's like, I don't even have to, like, that is so long ago. There's nothing else I remember that other events that were going on in my life that I can remember exactly like those birds. Like I'm like, I don't necessarily have to know all the details, but that it was there and it's flying around and it was by this lake and it's just crazy. Like some bird things you just remember forever. And that is different than most things. Like I could have some great restaurant outings or I don't know, funny things on TV, and I just don't remember them after a few months, what have you. They kind of go to somewhere else. But some of these birds, and he pointed me to this checklist where apparently we had a massive number of American golden plovers. Like I don't know, it was massive for the place. I think it was like I don't know, let's say it was like 70 or something. And and I don't remember that, but I looked at the checklist and I remember seeing at that time, sharp-tailed sparrows. Now they're Nelson's sparrows that exactly like going in, and we probably didn't have rubber boots or just in our shoes, getting wet, looking, and it was mid-October when they show up and seeing these things really well. And in those days, we didn't have photos of anything because you just didn't. Um,
Yeah.
we didn't have a good camera, and even if you did, you
You're
couldn't
shooting
get good
film and
photos.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's wild how you can remember things so vividly when it's a bird involved, and
Mm-hmm.
that I guess that's almost in some ways kind of like the emotional impact of the calls, of your sports. Like I don't even have to. you just tell me the bird. I'm like, oh yeah, that was, like the whole story replays in my head. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that too. And I guess kind of similarly, I have such strong, I guess you'd say like visual memories. Like I was just thinking one of our targets in Colombia was horned screamer, which it had been 2 years, I think, since I was in this spot, like, specific spot that we go for it. And we went out and it was pretty close to where I'd seen it 2 years ago on,
Hmm.
nearly to the exact day. And I was like, huh, that tree fell over. And like,
Wow.
do you have that kind of feeling too?
Yeah.
Because even like locally, if I'm like walking by like, a specific thing, I'd be like, man, there was a really nice blackburnian on this branch 6 years ago. And that
Yeah.
stuff really
Yeah.
sticks out to me more than a lot of other memories for me.
Yeah. I will notice in places I go a lot when a tree has shifted or changed or fallen, and you're like, oh wow,
Mhm.
and it really seems like a whole different place. I mean, I think it's like people who are city people and they go, hey, a new restaurant opened up or whatever, or like they changed their sign, and I'm looking at trees, and
Yeah.
and or even elements of the beach. Oh, like the beach is really shallow this year, or it's really steep, or whatever, and it just seems like a different place each time. It's funny. Yeah, we look at different things when you're a naturalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, we're lucky we get to return to a lot of places too that we only might
Oh,
see
yeah.
once a year. And doing that, you really do gain a perspective on some of these places that is a little different.
Hmm. And how
Mhm.
about individual birds? Like I was thinking about this because we could talk about Japan a little bit, but one of the birds that we look for is the Blakiston's fish owl, which is the largest owl in the world.
Mm-hmm.
A bird that is mythical
It really is.
and also there's a book written about this biologist that studied them in Russia, and I forget the title of the book, but apparently it's really a great book. So we should. I'll look that up, and later we can stick it on the
Oh,
notes.
yeah,
But it
definitely.
it it's everybody tells me it's great for the stories of all the Russian folks that he meets along the way and stuff like that. But the owl shows up at this. There's multiple places to see it, but where we go, I'm thinking, is this the same owl that I've been seeing for years? And it has a band, so I think it is much of the time. It's the same. There's sometimes
That's
the
amazing.
male or the female, but it's like the same individual that you see. Like you could name it. Like the
Like
this.
Flacco.
Yeah, like Flacco, or this guy would be Gordo because he's or she is like huge, like bingo. It's like a huge bird. And how many birds do you think you go and see again and again and again? Like I remember some of these antpittas that come to these stations. The locals will say it's the same one, like it's Juan or whatever that's been coming here for years, and I'm not sure if that's true or not, but it's possible that some of these birds are the exact same bird that you see again and again and again after. Yeah.
Right.
Anything stand out that you think
The one
about?
I the one I think of immediately is the I forget his name, but was the Takahe on Tiri Tiri Matenge Island in New Zealand, where it was like, huge spherical rail, for folks that don't know, it's like a,
Flightless. Yeah.
yeah, it's like a flightless purple gallinule that's pumped full of steroids, really, really hefty and fat, and got a huge, thick bill, more like a swamp hen. And I think I went there twice, um, and it was, I think that bird lived to be like 17 years, and for many years that was the Takahe that everybody saw, because they're pretty hard to see anywhere else. So
Yeah. I
That's a
didn't
good one.
see it when I was there, believe it or
no,
not.
that
No.
was this past year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But apparently it's around, or there is a bird around. So it's
It looks
Too
like there's a
bad.
longevity record for great horned owl of 28 years. So who
Yeah,
knows how long a Blakiston's fish owl might live? They're even bigger. They
right.
might live well beyond 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is the situation in which you see this? Is this a like a, well-fed one that has reasonable resources?
Oh yeah. You're in a hotel in one of the most beautiful Japanese hotels. Like going there just to stay at this place and eat at this place is amazing. Like it
Oh, I
has
know
like a
exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, and we go there and there's a big picture window with the river outside, and at night they put like little trout in a little place where the
Right.
owl comes, and when the owl comes, the word goes out and they shut off all the lights, so you can see there's like an outdoor light and you can see the owl perfectly. Like the window becomes, all the reflections are gone and you just sort of see the owl 10 feet away from wherever you seem to be standing. And there's tons of people just sitting there waiting for the owl often, and it comes in randomly, which is the most difficult part of it. So you never know. You can't go, oh yeah, it always comes in at 8 p.m. It comes in randomly, so it really is like you need to put in your time, and the excitement level for some people or the frustration level, depending on how it goes, is major. So yeah, it's
But
an easy, reliable place, but it's not that easy because you got to put in time.
they are pretty
This is
much
where
nocturnal though, right? They don't come in daylight, or do they?
No,
Yeah,
all nocturnal.
yeah. The one time I saw them, I think it was about 8 p.m. But yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What was it, Molly? You're asking?
this is where you like time your camera flash with the strobe light they're putting on or something, right?
That is actually a different place
Oh,
that
okay.
has a similar setup that they have a even more photography oriented spot where they have a strobe light of some kind, and I don't know how you do it, but I guess your camera times to the strobe and then you get these
Uh-huh.
perfect photos. um, in this case, there's just a solid light that doesn't go off, and the owl doesn't seem to be concerned with it. And there's multiple owls, but it seems to be like only one ever comes in at a time. So there's a pair, and sometimes young come in. If you're there in the summer, um, but this hotel is just so fantastic. Like you can have a proper Japanese room, or with futons, or you can have rooms that have beds and onsen bath, great food, homemade mochi, like, the pounded rice stuff that's like kind of a
Oh,
dessert. It's like,
geez.
yeah, it's so good. I don't know. It's like somebody told me that must be the coolest hotel ever, that I've stayed in as a traveling birder. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's like, and yeah. And I think one of the cool, I don't know if you've encountered this too in your recent trip, Molly, but the being away right now and in a place where it's everything, there's so many things you're looking at, whatever, and it's such I don't know, you feel so peaceful given all of the world events that are going on. Like this was definitely
Oh,
one of these
yeah.
places. Like you had no idea what was happening anywhere else. It was just you, the birds, the food, the weather, the day. It was great. So
Yep, definitely. Yeah, well, my thoughts on that for the longevity records are you've got a stocked area that a wild animal can use at any point as it wants. So that's probably going to bode well for its lifespan. And then if you got a way to measure it, then there you go.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely felt that too. Also just really love the familiarity of running into the same people that work at these places each year um and another thing that I really enjoy are a lot of the places that we go to have pets that you see once a year. And they like there's a 14-year-old husky at one of the places, Hacienda del Bosque in Colombia, and
I
it had
remember that
crossed my
pup. Yeah,
mind. Yeah, she's
yeah,
huge.
yep.
Um, And, you pull up another year and there she is.
Ready to say hi.
All of
Maybe
that. It's so
even recognizes
comforting.
you. Gives you a good
Yep.
sniff. Yep.
Sit in your
Yeah.
good chair at, I don't know, the feeders, or have your coffee that you think about year after year each morning. It's very calming. It's really nice stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a nice aspect of tourism when you get to go to places again and again, and people get to know you, or the dogs get to know you,
Yep.
the birds get to know you, the whole thing, and it really feels like you're not traveling, but you're almost going to like a friend's house, almost like it's
Yeah,
really
totally.
cool. Yeah. And I
It's
think
great.
clients, travelers that go with us get that. Like they're often
Absolutely.
said, like they're surprised when we go to a hotel and the staff come out and like hug us, like me and, whoever is, and, we're traveling with. And I'm like, wow, you've been here along, many times. It's like, yeah, we're all kind of friends, here, some of
Mm-hmm.
these places. Pretty cool.
Yep. Exactly. It is really cool. This was not a year after year kind of occurrence, but at our last 3 nights of our last tour, we stay at Termales del Ruiz, which is the place that's on the edge of Los Nevados National Park. It's in like elfin forest, right in the transition into the Paramo. It's amazing. It's got hot springs. It's a phenomenal place. It's an awesome place to end a tour for a few weeks. And I hadn't experienced this there before, but they're currently feeding a tawny ant petta. So we, yeah. So, and we go to, a couple different feeder stations, and tawny ant pittas are super easy to hear. Still difficult to see, although it just happened to be a tour. We saw them on 3 different occasions, just perched well. One was up on a post in a field at one point. So we'd already seen them really well, but it was there. And our second to last day, we swung by the feeder station at the timed morning feeding, and saw this tawny ant pitta. And it actually was it caught a big grub, like wild grub, not like a tossed mealworm, while we were there, which was really cool to watch it sit and feed, because it was not afraid of people, but it was actually hunting. And I took video of it, and it was awesome. But anyway, the last morning, I think 2 mornings after we had seen this ant pitta while we were feeding it, folks were kind of leaving in different stages from the tour. Somebody left at, I don't know, 6:30. Somebody was leaving at 9. So in between people packing up and heading out, I had just taken a short walk by myself, several hundred yards away from the feeding station. But I looked down and there's an ant pitta at my feet.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
Just popped up on the path. It was so cool. I was by myself. Surely it was the same one. But it followed me around for a little bit. And I thought, all right. So I started like flipping over rocks and trying to find earthworms, and then started tossing them to it. And it just hung out with me for half an hour or so. And at one point, some people from like the Manizales area come up to this area too. And like people go just to enjoy the hot springs, and it's amazing for birding, but it's not just birders who are there. So I am on my knees on the ground, like looking under a rock at stuff. And of course, a few people come up who are not birders. But then they did get to see the ant pitta and figure out what I was doing. And I gave them some worms to toss to it as well. So, I hope that's a friend I see again. I'll certainly think it's the same one if I have that experience in the future.
Yeah.
It was pretty cool. It was
pretty
sweet.
cool.
It was awesome. Unexpected.
Yeah, you gotta love it. If you're getting chased down the trail by an ant pitta that's sort of like, I'm ready for more food.
Yeah, it was totally acting like a dog you're playing fetch with or something.
Mm-hmm.
Which, yeah, and I don't know. I haven't experienced that at any of these places that feed these birds otherwise.
Right.
Outside of the
like
feeding stations or anything.
Yeah, usually you don't see those birds other than exactly at the feeding station. It's interesting.
Mm-hmm. And generally they're coming to their person that they're accustomed to coming to, right? Like they're calling them by voice, and I don't know. This one was not the case. Maybe it was a wild ant pitta that just decided it was friendly along this trip.
I remember going to O'Reilly's guest house in Australia, which is, I don't know if they still feed the birds there. I think they might have changed policy there, but it used to be that there was sort of controlled feedings there. And there was one guy in particular that would go around and he would call to all the birds, and they would come and land on him. Like these wild birds just come and land on him. And there wasn't like a given feeding area necessarily. But we were there, I think, 4 nights, and like at one point I was by myself, and I was like, I'm gonna try this out, and I just started. I remember there was like a whip bird, and I was like, and he would go like, Whippy, Whippy, come here, Whippy, and so I started doing the same thing, and and then I felt bad. I was like, oh, I didn't actually have any food. I didn't think this would work, because the whip bird landed like right on my hand. He was like, he responded to the sound, so I must have done a decent impression. But that's about the closest parallel I can think to. The experience you just had, Molly.
That's funny. Cool stuff.
Yeah. No, definitely. And it does bring up the point, George, we were talking about this, about feeding birds, how it's really works out really nicely in some places, but was it Vietnam?
Yeah.
That in the birding scene there where they have mealworm and other feeding stations with hides that that I thought were really so awesome in Thailand. Over there, it's not good because there's a local trade for birds where they use these hides to actually
attract the birds and capture them.
Yeah, and that is not happening in Latin America and these places, with Ampitas, and it's not happening in Thailand, but I guess it's one of those things where you got to know where you are, what you're doing, and what is sort of okay and what isn't in different places in the world.
Yeah.
It's pretty sad, very sad. But there we are.
Yeah. Hard to imagine that kind of purpose for those things in the moment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Molly, what else did you see on your recent Colombia trip? You had back-to-back trips, right? One in the Western Andes and then one in the Central.
Yep. And we'd flipped the order from the order in which I'd traveled through here in previous years. So we started with the Western Andes and then did Central after, which I actually loved. And I was just looking shortly before we got on here because it was 2 separate tours, but we did them back to back so folks could join both if they wanted to. And the majority of our group was on both tours. So altogether, we had 426 species, which kind of blows my mind over 13 days. It's so crazy. It's amazing what happens when you work your way through the Western and Central Andes, I guess. But what we kind of did was more or less started at the lowest elevation of our trip. We kind of swung up a little bit higher, and then went back down because we started at Montezuma Rainforest. But more or less, we started sort of at sea level in the Choco, and then we just kept working our way up the Western Andes and then into the Central Andes, which has a ton of species diversity. So it was really, really cool to do it that way. I actually loved it. And you end at the highest point. I think the highest point in the Western Andes we went to was maybe 8,000 feet or so. Which is where you get chestnut-bellied flower piercer and some other really exciting birds and really nice national park habitat outside of Montezuma's Lodge at Tatama National Park. One of the hotspots there at Montezuma is the biggest hotspot or biggest number of species in all of Colombia.
Well, that's just saying something.
How much you can get there.
Yeah.
But then you go clear up to pushing 14,000 feet in the Central Andes when we get up into the Paramo, well above the tree line, where we look for buffy helmet crest and a lot of other really cool species that are up there. So I loved doing it that way. Had crushing looks of buffy helmet crest, by the way. It was really, really great. And first got it within an hour or so. One person was in the bathroom, of course.
Oh, man.
That's what happens. But then it came back to the same spot, and we actually got more throughout the trip. So that's always just a really cool way to end those tours with such an amazing hummingbird. And I think I was just counting, and as we were talking and might have missed some, I think we had 49 hummingbird species altogether.
Jesus.
Isn't that crazy? Just the
Wow.
It's nuts.
diversity of hummingbirds you get on this trip is pretty awesome. And of course, we're getting like lots of iconic tanagers, and we go to a cock of the rocklet and all sorts of harder to see birds that, fill out a list like that. But man, you get some really cool birds on this trip.
Yeah.
And it's like every day you get another icon of the Andes. It's awesome.
The your Amphibian story reminded me of I was in Ecuador doing research work on leafcutter ants way back in the day during my ant days. And I was at this place called Khatun Sacha, and I would go there for months at a time. I'd live there. And sometimes I'd be out in the middle of the forest, like walking around, and I wasn't really supposed to be birding, but you can't help it. I was supposed to be doing all my ant work. That's when I decided I really don't want to work in ants anymore, because all I do here is go birding, and I'm not getting anything done. So I was walking in the forest, and this is lowland forest, so you don't really see ant pittas really. Like they're it's not the right kind of habitat for most of them. Like they're higher up in the mountains, And this ant pitta thing comes out. I mean, there's a few species, and I'm like, what is that thing? I and
Whoa.
I'd studied, but I don't know. I wasn't, also there weren't as many books, and there was no Merlin and all that. And it was the ochre striped amphida, which is really not seen all that much. But in any case, I didn't know what it was. I couldn't remember ever having seen a picture of this thing. And for a while, I thought, I think I might have discovered a new species, but it was
Oh
right
my
at my
gosh.
feet. Like there was no playback, no nothing. It just came out, and it was walking around my feet. And I'm like, what? I mean, close, maybe not at my feet. And the views were stunning. So it was really obviously, I could see, and I remember like writing down all these notes and making a little sketch. And it was so exciting. Then I eventually go back to the books. I'm like, oh crap, it's a known thing. Then I was like all like bummed. And that was such a dumb way to see that.
It is, because there are 6 photos of this bird and eBird. Like, it is still, all these years
Yeah.
later, not something people get to see a lot.
Yeah, I
Right.
guess you didn't whip out your cell phone and take a picture at that point,
No,
did you?
no, didn't have, I didn't even have a flip phone, let alone a, proper cell phone. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one of the images is a
Man.
sketch, by the way, from 1989. So, yeah, since 2010, there are 5 photos. That's it. Of this species.
Yeah. So I guess, it was not incorrect to be totally unaware of this bird. It was not really sort of
No
prominent,
kidding.
you know. But yeah, that was the same area where once I was coming back, probably mentioned this before, on the pod, where I'm coming back down the trail in the evening. It's dark in the forest, but there's still light up in the sky, and there's big chicken things on the ground. I'm like, what the heck is this thing? And it was beautiful, and it was a nocturnal curassow
Oh my
that was
God.
walking around on the ground right in front of me. Well, they're hard to see. Again, I was not that well informed to know what this thing. I knew about it.
This is pearls before swine, as they say. Yes.
Yeah. I knew about the thing, and I'd seen the picture in the book, but what didn't prepare you for how gorgeous this thing is in real life, And I gather that people that see this still, they see it up in trees and at night in a flashlight kind of thing. But this thing was walking around on the ground 10 feet in front of me, displaying too. It's had its tail out, and just Google that bird if you're listening to this, and you can imagine my surprise was holy moly, look at that thing. It was sort of
Yeah, not many good photos of that bird either. The The most recent image I saw of that bird was when I was in Colombia in Erie, where like the white sand forest is and everything. And there was a hunter guy there that kind of was taking us around, and he showed us on his phone a photo. He was like, "What's this bird?" He was like, "My mom, like all the hunters like bring my mom like these different animals and stuff that they end up are stranded or whatever." And he was like, "Yeah, some hunter like brought this bird to my mom," and I was like, "That's a nocturnal curassow." And she had it like in her little barn and was like raising it because I think the hunter had shot the parent. But I was like, that is pretty ridiculous. But yeah,
Crazy.
Yeah. If you're going to think you've found new birds, which I know a lot of birders have felt, and it's typically not for birds of that caliber. So
Yeah.
could be
It's like a little
worse.
flycatcher, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. Another bird that our entire group got to see was ocellated tapaculo. We just had one call close, and we played tape for a second and like a couple times, and it just happened to be in a window and stood still long enough that like one person at a time, our entire group got through it and got to see the bird. And that was awesome. Made like top bird of the trip for several
Right.
folks.
As tapaculos go, that is a good looking one.
Man, it
Yeah.
was sweet. It was really cool. Some folks got photos too. But it's one of those, like, we were talking about just these unexpected birds that you find. And even if you're doing the same route as a leader each year, or even if you're going on a tour that a lot of other birders have been on, there's going to be a few moments that are really, really awesome and are just going to stand out for the rest of your life. It's like one of the highlights of this trip. And it's so exciting when you're beginning. You don't know what it is. You don't know what bird it's going to be. If it's something rare or something common that's doing something cool, like you're going to have something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, always something. We in Japan, we had a known rarity in the south in Kyushu where the cranes are, but we weren't prepared for it because it was like it comes in maybe in the afternoon at this corner of the reserve or whatever. But we just popped into the first place to look at the cranes, and somebody said, "Hey, there's a swan goose over there," and it's like that's the rare one. And a swan goose, a wild swan goose, is pretty cool looking thing. It's got a huge, long bill. Everything about it is long, and it is so buffy, colorful on the breast. Like that, they don't look. The Chinese goose, the domesticated, thing with the big knob on its head, actually comes from the swan goose, and you would think it kind of would look more like that. They don't. Like the swan goose looks like this low, short-legged, long-billed thing, and we were like, wow, like that is really a cool looking goose, like which it's not something you say often, maybe like with geese, sort of.
It's funny. The head shape almost looks like a giant fin foot or something. It's like this really long, dark bill. Yeah, it is an unusual looking bird, unless they've got the big knobs, which some of them do, I guess. But
yeah, and I don't
just
know
the
that
domestic ones.
Just the domestic ones to have that. Yeah. That the other thing is like we were in a place, Lake Mike, down in the south again, watching for. It's a really great birding spot where you'll have, olive back pipits walking around the lawns, and it's good for Japanese woodpeckers and white-backed woodpeckers, and the lake is just crammed full of Eurasian widgeon, and there's always good place to see like nuthatches, and it's a real good woodsy place. And this warbler showed up where I'm like, "Hey, Hero, this is like a leaf warbler, but I don't think there should be any leaf warblers right here right now in winter." And I could sort of see him thinking, "This is gonna be a Japanese bush warbler, common bird,
Like,
and
just
then he's like,
relax, Alvaro.
yeah,
Just
relax."
relax.
Hey, he didn't say anything like that, of course, because he's a very polite Japanese person, but I could see it in his posture. and, and, and then he looks and he goes, "Oh, that is not a Japanese bush warbler." So, and we started looking at this thing, and we just photographed it and looked at it. And there's a lot of these leaf warblers out in Asia, and we haven't figured out yet what it is. But like, and
Wow.
I'm wondering if maybe we will, maybe we won't, maybe we have enough imagery, but all of the potential things that are the most likely, it is not. Which I'm thinking, wow, we found a really rare bird, and it would really suck if we can't figure out what it is, because it would probably be the first winter record,
of
what have
whatever it
you
is.
there. Yeah, and it may
Mhm.
be a Siberian chiffchaff is sort of what I'm going for right now. But
Wow.
it that's exciting. But it's exciting in that we're all it's like all hands on deck when something happens like that. I'm like, everybody, look at this thing, get photos. Look at
Yeah.
and people aren't prepared because if you're a visiting birder and you're taking a tour, sometimes you're looking at only the things that are most likely. You're not looking at some warbler that should be in Thailand or wherever else, and so
Mhm.
there's a lot of confusion, and also from the guides, we're like, we can't really tell you much except these are really hard to identify. We need to be looking for, the colors. Do they have wing bars? Is the bill orangey or not? There's a lot of things. How long is the supercilium? So let's look at all those things, and like, let's kind of catalog it. But that was fun, and then, we had a group that was really cool and mellow. So they haven't been, you know, sending me a note every 5 minutes. Like, have you figured out the warbler yet? Figured out the warbler yet?
What's the warbler?
Because
What's the warbler?
sometimes it takes time, I'm going to have to send these things out to experts in Asia, see what their thoughts are. But
Hopefully they'll
so that was
know.
fun.
Sometimes these
Yeah.
things just don't get resolved either, which can be, frustrating and or but also kind of, I don't know. I love a little mystery. I love having some dragons to slay, but yeah, hopefully that can
Yeah.
get
Exactly.
resolved. That's pretty cool. That story reminded me of the blue and white flycatcher we kind of
Yeah,
detailed
definitely.
last time, Molly. Yeah.
Yeah. Finding rare birds on trips or even like, going after rarities in an area, it's kind of tricky, right? Like because your group that's coming to see the specialties in an area may not be interested in whatever's rare. Like
Right.
I was with a group that chased a ring-billed gull in Costa Rica once, and it was really really fun because it was so goofy. But yeah, it's not like the rest of the group is necessarily concerned about that. Besides just going along for the fun of the ride, and
Yeah.
of course, that beach had a bunch of scarlet macaws feeding at like eye level. So we were all entertained with the scarlet macaws, and our local guides were happy to get their country tick. But we were kind of talking about that in Colombia too. A few people had signed up for the local eBird rare bird alerts,
Uh-huh.
and that like catches me off guard sometimes because I thought, huh, yeah, I mean, it's cool to keep an eye on that stuff too. But our trip targets are often, exactly what you expect to find in these places.
Yeah. Yeah. It's and the eBird is in different places. Have you noticed, like, some places use eBird a ton, like all of Latin America? You're
Yes.
really,
Yep.
really valuable. Japan, not so much. Like, you have very few local Japanese birders using eBird, but there's a lot of birders
Hmm.
around. Like, most places you go, you will see Japanese birders. And I was thinking, like, interesting, maybe it just doesn't lend itself well in the language, or how the usability, or maybe it's just a cultural thing, or maybe they have a different system there that I'm not aware of, but it's very, it's very funny in that way. But, like, every time I go, it seems, and I spend some time watching gulls in Japan, in winter, I find a Thayer's gull. And that's supposed to be super rare, or not super rare, but rare enough that, um,
People would twitch it.
you know, I don't, I think no, it's rare enough that people know to go to look for them in winter, if you spend enough time, you will find them. And it's like, so a lot of Asia twitchers will go to Choshi and parts of Japan where they have been known to show up. But we found one like in Hokkaido where, there's very few records. And it's just funny. I'm like, what is the actual status of this bird? So I may think it's rarer than it truly is because I'm thinking of eBird as the standard. But the Japanese
Yeah.
bird, maybe there's some local. It's like, I see 30 of these a year. What's the big deal? It's just because it's not on there doesn't mean it doesn't exist. But I
Yeah,
I
definitely.
do think we're warped in our eBird centric world sometimes in what is rare, what isn't, and what gets flagged and what doesn't. It's like depending on where you are, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. What's getting flagged is definitely a whole nother ball game too. And super dependent on even like in Colombia, eBird is pretty widely used. We were just kind of standing around talking to some folks who were camping at the end of the trip, not non-birders, and their local guide was saying, "Oh, I'm not a birder," and he was carrying binoculars and a camera. And I said, "Okay," and I
Yeah.
said, "Do you use
Yeah.
eBird?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "But I'm not a birder." So
Not a birder.
that's yeah, but that tells you that eBird's pretty widely used. But yeah, all sorts of stuff gets flagged just because the kind of local system of flagging things is a little different than what we're used to in the US.
Yeah. It's true. Um, I mean, to me, it's ridiculous in some respects how let me give you this example. We were in Hokkaido. We go to the place where you go and see all the eagles. There's a couple of places, but on the boat trip, you go out and if there's ice, the eagles sit on the ice or what have you. And we saw, I don't know, 250 stellar seagulls or something like that. Like, I mean, a life-changing experience, yet eBird doesn't flag it as special or anything. You're like, shouldn't there be a flag for like an awesome star for like you just witnessed something
Yeah.
awesome, even though it's predictable?
Right.
Because
You're like,
because
I know we should have tripped a filter here somehow.
I
Yeah.
I know maybe there should be an
Okay,
awesomeness filter, not just
251.
rarity. Oh yeah, 251. It's like it's so funny that is the case. Like you can have a bird that is amazing, and there should be a different way to like have eBird kind of not flag it for review, but flag it for like, wow, you've
Awesomeness.
collected, yeah, awesome points. Like here's your awesome eBird list right here. Like and it
Yeah.
could be events rather than single birds, right? Like migration of cranes or whatever. I don't know, eBird, you listening? Awesome points. Stars. Stop worrying about the stars on the photos, but how about the stars of the experiences,
What's kind of funny in eBird's power is a dopamine hit if you're getting that flag where it's like, yeah, I saw that many sea eagles.
Yeah.
Or on the flip side, you could have a flag that gives you a little ping of anxiety of like, wait a second, did I see
Yeah.
40 scarlet minivets? Because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I just
Yeah.
did.
Right.
A
Exactly.
lot of power
Yeah.
there.
A lot of power.
It's true. Well, guys, we are coming up on the hour here. It is getting to be scootin' time. Molly, why don't you tell the good folks what you got coming up?
Yeah. Well, when this episode is released, I'll be in the middle of another tour in Cuba, taking off in a few days for that. And that will be followed by a quick trip to Oaxaca, Mexico. And then I am done with my very busy winter season for a little bit. And I'm going to come home and work on the garden, which
Nice.
will be
Wow.
neglected by then. So, yeah, staying busy for now, editing from planes. It's my favorite time to edit these podcasts because you don't need internet for it. And I need something to do to kill time. So I'll be listening to this again from the air. But yeah, otherwise, tours and things that I have that have availability in early May. I'm heading to Birding the Border in Texas and super excited about that. I know I talked about that on our last episode too. And then late May, I have my West Virginia Naturalist and Culinary Adventures Tour. And in August, I have my Alaska Sampler Tour. And you'll have to check both of those out and see what the availability is for them if you're interested. But that's what I have coming up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I hear you about the garden too. I'm like, there's been a hints of nice weather here the last couple days. I'm like, oh, I want to get out there and start like getting stuff ready.
Yeah. Today it's sunny and there are bluebirds out on their balks out there. And I'm looking at those and thinking, all right, got to think about seeds.
Yeah. Nice. Al, what's going on with you, man?
First of all, a suggestion. If you listen to the recent podcast that we did on the New Zealand subantarctic and, the pyramid and all that, put on your headphones and listen to the water sloshing around as we talk. We recorded that on the ship on a phone, and you can hear the sort of soothing and I just happened to have heard it on headphones the other day. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like that we were on that boat, that actually happened. So there you go. Listen to it on headphones and listen for that ocean sound. But speaking of ocean, I am going back to Japan in spring, in May, something very different where we actually do have some ferry rides across some really wonderful seabird places. We will go to the breeding colonies of spectacled guillemots. We will be going to islands that get migrant stopover birds going to Siberia. All these things that you always look for in Alaska as vagrants. I think we might be able to see many of them as regular migrants over there and even find some rare birds. So it's a very different trip from the winter trip. But very excited about this. Is a totally different itinerary from anything we've done in the past. And also a lot of specialty breeding birds, endemic breeders in May, spring in Japan. We have about 3 spots open. So yeah, let us know.
Nice. Cool. Excellent.
And the food is good. Food is always good there.
Yeah.
People are friendly, and you can forget about the troubles of the world when you're in Japan.
Need that now more than ever. Yeah. Cool. Well, I would encourage folks to check out hillstarnature.com. Of course, we do have some spots on a couple trips I am guiding, including to the Pribilofs, St. Paul Island in Alaska. June 19th is the start date for that one. So take a look at that. And I also still have a couple spots left on my India trip to the south of India in December, where we go to the Ghats and the Deccan Plateau. We go for tiger, of course, but there's a bunch of other interesting mammals and a ton of endemics, really more endemics there than anywhere else in Southern Asia. So excited for those and hope that you'll think about joining me for those.
Hey, one last thing that you reminded me. We saw amazing views of the tanuki. Do you remember what that is, George?
The tanuki? I do not remember what that is.
The raccoon dog.
Oh,
yeah, which is like, you're like, what do you mean raccoon dog? I just said dog. It's kind of a fat, fluffy dog fox thing, but it's like really portly. And it's got raccoon face kind of thing. And it's just it's not that rare, but we had great views of these Japanese raccoon dogs out in southern Japan. And it's called the tanuki. And there's like there's signs spread all over the place on the highways, like watch out for, like for wildlife crossing. And everybody's like, why is there like a weird little raccoon thing on the signs? I'm like, that's the raccoon dog. But we saw him really well.
Nice. I was just looking it up. They are reputed to be mischievous and jolly, masters of disguise and shape-shifting, but somewhat gullible and absent-minded. So go figure.
Wow.
Japanese raccoon dog or tanuki. Very cool.
Really cool. Yeah. I didn't talk about mammals and other things we saw on the trip too, so I'll talk about that in the next episode.
Nice.
All right.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again soon. Cheers, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye
everyone.
bye.